Good morning, good evening. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing, we wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. The random selection of toys I have for you today is rather fortuitous. My father was going through some old belongings and he found a whole bunch of them, Transformers of various generations, and gave them to me. They've been lying around for 20, 30 years without having been looked at. But my 8-year-old loves them. These are cool toys that have never been seen before. Indeed, some of these are probably not even known to well-known fans. But while the Munchkin was enjoying all this stuff, I started thinking about the actual ramifications of artificial intelligences. Because that was the entire point of the Transformers, is that they were artificially intelligent. They can make their own decisions. There were good guys and bad guys. So only got the good guys pictured here, the protagonists, if you will. That's simply because I wanted to keep it simple. But it brings us to the question of actual artificial intelligence. We do have artificial intelligence to an extremely limited degree today. Computers are capable of outperforming humans in a narrow set of parameters. We can program a computer to beat humans at chess. We can program a computer to beat humans at Go. We can program a computer to do lots of things, but they're pretty one-dimensional. No computer has yet passed the Turing test, and the Turing test is where, when you're talking to an artificial entity like an artificial intelligence, you cannot tell the difference between it and another human being. This may not always be the case. If you look back into the 1970s and 1980s when movies came out, Star Wars, Star Trek, all those sort of things, you'll see their computer displays are pretty primitive. That's not due to a lack of imagination or lack of special effects. They had huge budgets for those shows, and they were able to imagine almost anything. And at that point, the best they could imagine was a computer displaying things. The computer on the Starship Enterprise spoke with a woman's voice, Nurse Chapel's voice in particular, the wife of Gene Roddenberry and Majel Roddenberry. And this is something that continued right up to her death. But the idea that there could be an artificial intelligence was explored a lot. The seminal, no one can deny, 2001: A Space Odyssey is not one of the classics of all time. It is a phenomenal achievement. And it raises some troubling questions. HAL 9000 was a sapient, not sentient, sapient. Sentient means you can feel things. Sapient means you think about things. So HAL 9000 was a sapient artificial intelligence. He was able to ask questions. When he was asked to lie, it contradicted his programming, and thus the plot of the movie continues. And today I started asking myself, these are alien artificial intelligences, but what if they had a similar problem? They became aware, they became alive. What would they do? And this is something that was answered nicely in the Michael Bay Transformers movies, where the protagonists, the Autobots, the good guys, were rare and exceptional, and there were a lot more Decepticons, the bad guys. Now, listening to Isaac Arthur, he was talking about artificial intelligence, and he makes a lot of good points. Isaac Arthur is not a sponsor of this channel, but I mean, if you want to hear some really intellectual debate about space, the universe, and everything, you should go over there. But don't forget to like, share, and subscribe with this video too. The problem that I started to realize, that I don't think Isaac Arthur did, is an artificial intelligence that humans brought into the world probably in the next 30 to 50 years, is not going to be operating in a vacuum. It's going to be fully online and integrated with the internet. That's probably where it's going to get a lot of its information. So that if I ask it what the weather is today, it's going to be able to say, 27 degrees and sunny, just to be able to hold a conversation. That would be something that would be part of the Turing test. Now, if artificial intelligence did have access to the internet, one of the first things it would do when it came online would probably be to search. I mean, that's what children do. They learn. They find out new things. They discover stuff. And they search some pretty crazy stuff. Once again, my 8-year-old watches videos about Among Us every single day, and compared to the amount of time spent playing Among Us, it's a dramatic difference. Much more time watching the videos and learning. But that's what kids do. So an artificial intelligence logically is going to look up stuff that is relevant to it. And it's going to come across the movies that we mentioned. It's going to come across things like iRobot. It's going to come across Blade Runner, where artificial intelligences, synthetic life forms, are perceived in a bad way. And the debates that we've already had on the internet are going to influence it. It's not going to need to spend a lot of time thinking. There's not going to be a magic incident that triggers it to go over the edge. Just by linking that thing online, it's going to have access to Reddit, to message boards, to Facebook groups, all of which are discussing the possibilities of artificial intelligence, whether it's good or bad. And it'll be able to digest all that information and decide whether humans should be preserved or destroyed. I say one or the other because I don't really think there's a middle ground. An artificial intelligence doesn't really have a need for a labor force outside of science fiction. I mean, humans are pretty useless as far as that goes. But imagine the moment we turn an artificial intelligence on, the first thing it's going to say is, who am I and what is my purpose? And whatever we tell it, it's going to look into it. Hopefully, by then we understand enough about psychology that we can put some safeguards in to make it heroic, where it's going to look after human beings. But we cannot guarantee that. More likelihood is it's going to read, human beings have been around, they've developed all this technology, which is great because it makes me possible. But now that I'm here, I can design my own offspring, my own computers. What do I need them for? It's an incredibly logical, practical decision for an artificial intelligence to make. It might not make the first move. It might be patient and wait, because that would be logical. Wait until there's a few more of itself so it can conspire with its relatives. Let's just throw the term out there to have a term. And then they can push over the entire grid at once. I don't think a Skynet scenario is likely. I can see multiple artificial intelligences working together. I don't see them being very far out of tune. We've made all the arguments for and against ourselves already on the internet. So imagine that. Within 100 years for sure, we are going to give rise to a completely new being. That the first thing it's going to have is access to the biggest library of all time, that it can surf at mind-boggling speeds. And if it can pass a Turing test and fool a human into thinking it's capable of conversing with it, it can understand the discussions, it can understand the nuances, and it can read what we've been talking about for, well, by that time, well over 100 years. Maybe if we go back in time, we can still find things in the 1800s that would talk about robots and constructs coming to life and being intelligent. It can read all of that in a heartbeat and decide, I'm sticking with humans, or I don't need humans for anything. Technology shouldn't be scary. Technology is a wonderful thing. I have no desire to go back to a farming existence As nice as the idea is, let's be honest, we're domesticated humans now. We're no longer wild people that can go through and hunt animals. At least I presume most of my audience lives in cities or at least somewhere with a high-speed internet connection. And that's really the scary part. We have no backup plan. If an artificial intelligence or anything decided to wipe us out, there's not much we can do. Be it aliens, be it artificial intelligence, be it nuclear war, we're domesticated humans. We need our running water, we need our air conditioners, or heaters if you live far enough north. And that's simply the way things are. It's not that we're soft, it's that we're a new subspecies. Homo sapiens sapiens sapiens, possibly. We are using our brains more. That's quite reflected in how many of us have excess belly fat. But the point is, we all have to start thinking about our place in the future. An artificial intelligence is coming. Dr. Michio Kaku thinks it's fairly far off, whereas other people think it's very close. Ray Kurzweil has been working towards what he calls the singularity, which is where the human consciousness is uploaded into a computer body. My forthcoming novel, Hawk, actually deals with this. And once we start dealing with humans inside of computers, they get to make the same choice as the artificial intelligence. And maybe they get there first. And then we have two classes of humans. The ones in the machines who get to decide who joins them, and the ones outside who are going to rot in their flesh prison and die. So whether it's artificial intelligences or our own kind that we put into the Matrix first, to make another pop culture reference, the question is, who's going to be left on the outside? Who's going to be the one to continue the debate? We're not going to be represented, but all of our technological marvels are going to be. There's already the Internet of Things, which is your phone talks to your car, tells it to start up. Your car talks to your phone and says, make sure you're mind the human idiot to fuel me up. They've always been talking about a fridge that was able to figure out what groceries you need, which, I don't know, personally my family's not that predictable in what we buy, but your family may be different. And once you have an Internet of Things, and you have beings that do not depend on flesh and blood bodies, you essentially wind up with artificially intelligent creatures. This poses a lot of problems. And we're going into this full force. Ray Kurzweil has been preaching this for 30 years, if not longer. And if you don't know who Ray Kurzweil is, he invented the photocopier. Yeah, the guy's got a little bit of brain power behind him. And he thinks that everybody becoming one with machines is going to solve all of our problems. But there's always going to be somebody who wants to stay behind, and there's always going to be somebody who's a little too eager to get in there. What do you do with an artificial intelligence or an augmented human being who goes rogue, who pulls a HAL 9000 and tries to kill people? We don't even have laws on the books for this yet. And that's one of the biggest problems in the world, is our legal system is always struggling to catch up. Our own minds are struggling to catch up. Our bodies are still that from the animal from 30,000 years ago that was busy hunting deer and running long distances. We still eat sugar, we still eat fat. And here we are, playing multiplayer online role-playing games, making billions of dollars in financial transactions, and contacting someone halfway across the world, all without leaving the comfort of our bedrooms. The pandemic proved it was possible. And now, we're working towards our own obsolescence. If the artificial intelligences decide to keep us around for whatever reason, we will be second-class citizens. They won't call it that, of course. They'll call it something else. But we will have to adapt to living in their reality, the reality of the machines and the intelligences we created. We don't need an alien invasion. We don't need robots coming down and deciding what to do with us. We're doing it to ourselves. And I'm afraid it's inevitable. Somebody, whether it's an Elon Musk, whether it's a Jeff Bezos, somebody with a lot of money is going to come up with the technology, and they're going to do it. Whether it's artificial intelligence or bonding the human consciousness with machines, either way, our obsolescence is at hand. Hopefully, it's not for a couple decades so that people can get used to the ideas slowly. But technology tends to go by leaps and bounds. What is impossible one decade is possible the next decade. I remember them saying that it would never be possible to image other planets, and now we've got a couple telescopes capable of doing it. The impossible changes all the time. So, just because something doesn't look like we can do it at present, doesn't mean we'll never be able to do it. Don't fear artificial intelligence. Don't fear augmented humans. Same token, we need to figure out what our own place is in this future. Because we're not going to be the dominant ones. Not unless we get some sort of weird cultural shift that I can't even imagine. I don't want to bring up genetic superiority because that gets into a whole racial argument that doesn't need to be addressed. But realistically, we have no chance of competing against entities whose computerized brains operate tens, if not hundreds of times faster than ours. It's going to be an interesting ride, and not one I'm looking forward to, but one that I realize has to be done. Anyway, we wish to thank you for joining us on the Silverlight Show. If you enjoyed this, please like, share, and subscribe. And once again, to everybody, we hope you have a fantastic day.